So good afternoon. I would like to call this special called meeting of the Oldham County Board of Education to order. It is May 14th, 2020, and we are live streaming. First order of business, Superintendent, is to approve an agenda. Are there any additional reports or corrections, sir?
No, ma'am, we are good to go.
All right. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
Larry Dodson will make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by
Kevin Woosley, I'll second it.
Mr. Woosley. Thank you, guys. And all those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher. That makes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Let's go straight to our superintendent report, Mr. Schultz.
So tonight, Lori McDowell is going to give the super report on the alternative to traditional graduation plan. And in the wings, just in case you all have any questions, is Kristen McMahon and Leah Pelkey, who also served on that committee. And I don't know, did I get everybody else? I think that's it. All right, so Ms. McDowell, I'm going to turn it over to you for a super report.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. So I just wanted to start by giving you a little bit of background on what we're calling the ATTG, the Alternative to Traditional Graduation Committee. So I think it was mid-April, Mr. Schultz contacted myself and several other people, including Carrie Pitzenberger, who's a secondary level director at the central office, Mr. Woosley, Mr. Kehoe. The four of us are all parents of seniors in Oldham County schools. We also had a couple of additional central office folk, the principals from all four high schools, and then our senior class sponsors. So we made up the initial committee. We had our meeting. We first sent out a survey, and that was on April 20th. And that survey went to seniors and parents. And that was just kind of an open response survey. We just wanted everybody to just throw out any and all the ideas for an alternative to traditional graduation, because the traditional graduation that we know all gathered in Freedom Hall or Broadbent Arena with thousands of people just wasn't going to be possible due to COVID-19. So we sent out that survey and we got back 268 responses. And as I'm sure you can imagine, we had pretty much everything all across the board, from push it back to a later date when we can do a traditional ceremony, to let's do a parade, let's do the drive-in theater, just mail us our diplomas. It was basically all across the board. And of course, in the committee, we talked, and the easiest thing, would be perhaps to push it off until a later date when we can have that traditional ceremony. But the bottom line is we just don't know what the future is going to hold. And around about that time, some guidance did finally come out from KDE and the governor about what graduation should look like, could look like, what it shouldn't look like. And they did recommend that even if we were to try to push it off to a later date, that we needed to do something sooner rather than later for those that, need that closure, that won't be around later in the summer. We've got some kids that will be gone for various places, school, boot camp, and the like. So we sent out a second survey on April 29th, and this was after the committee met and we talked about what might be feasible, what might be possible for a graduation to look like. So with that second survey, we came up with 3 options. And the first one is what we're presenting today, which I'll get into a little more detail about in a minute. But that's what we're calling the hybrid ceremony. And that kind of has some elements of an in-person graduation as well as some elements of virtual kind of pushed together into this hybrid plan. So that was one option. The other one that we came up with is having some sort of ceremony with seniors on the schools. And then the third option was drive-in, kind of a drive-in ceremony where everybody stays in their car, perhaps at like Crestwood Station. So we put that survey out. We put that out to seniors only, and we had 417 of our 1,001 seniors that responded to that. And we asked them to rank their first choice. And with that, the football field came back at 48%, the hybrid at 32%, and the drive-in at 18%. So at that point, we then brought some seniors from our 3 of our high schools, from North, from South, and from OC, 2 seniors from each of those schools. We brought them into our committee and had virtual meetings with them to get their feedback, what they were hearing, what they were thinking as well. So that was we had some really good conversations, a lot of really long conversations with them as well. And one thing that I wanted to point out that came up in that survey where we had the 3 options. We did give the option for students to write in a comment or another option as well. And we got a lot of comments about using Cardinal Stadium. And so that is something that we did explore. We looked into, and the problem with that was that they were only going to allow our seniors to be present for that. No family whatsoever. So once we told seniors about that, they kind of agreed that that wasn't the best plan because they wanted their parents, immediate family members to be able to be there. So in these conversations with seniors, some things that we were able to pull out of them, they thought it was, having that traditional ceremony was important, but they also realized that we had to do something soon. We had to offer some sort of a virtual graduation as well. They indicated that even, if they weren't able to have that traditional ceremony, it was very important to them to be able to come together as a class one last time at some point in the summer. So we recognized that that was important to them as well. So in all of these meetings conversations with them, then they came to a consensus that the hybrid plan, which combines the elements of in-person and virtual, was the best to explore for the immediate future. So that's what we would like to present today. But before I get into that, I thought I'd pause and see if anybody has any questions on the process up to this point.
Thank you. Great explanation, Ms. McDowell. Board members, do you have any questions? We have had several days to look at this, Ms. McDowell, so I think board members are comfortable with the information we have. So if you would like to proceed.
Yeah, so just to explain a little bit about our hybrid plan, which is some in person, some virtual. This is going to give students an opportunity, and I want to point out that one thing that we consistently heard from students is doing that walk was very important. The walk across some sort of stage in a cap and gown was very important to them. So this plan allows them to be in that cap and gown and walking across what is going to be a beautifully decorated stage. And they're going to get to have their immediate family there to witness that, which was another thing that was very important as well. So essentially, these will take place at 3 high schools at North, South, and OC. I believe that Buckner is going to do theirs in conjunction with Oldham County High School. So students will be given a time slot on a certain day at the end of May, early June, to arrive at school. They will have a designated parking spot. Each student can bring up to 6 guests from their household. Now, this is supposed to be people that you've been quarantined with. There is an exception for split families, in cases of divorce or blended families. Those students can bring up to 10 guests total. So that helps out with that split family situation. We have run all this by the health department. We've sought a lot of guidance from them. They have approved this and given us guidance as far as everyone wearing face masks, what we, will need to clean in between groups. So we've kind of thought out all those details to just make this extremely safe, or as safe as possible for everyone involved. And as far as, the staff that will be there, of course, the principal will be there, counselor, our senior sponsors. We will have a professional photographer there to capture the moment. And what I think is a really important detail is that we're going to have a professional videographer there as well to record each student as they go across the stage. The videographer will also get some speeches from the superintendent, board members, senior class representatives, and then edit this all into what we think is going to be a pretty special video that will be for all of our seniors. They'll be able to access that, and that will kind of look like that traditional ceremony. Yeah, so then this has approval of the Oldham County Health Department. We think that we've really thought through all the steps to make it as special as possible for the students, and as safe as possible for the students, for the staff, and for the community as well.
Excellent. I know that we have the details in front of us in terms of how high schools are going to have to split their students, and they will have to honor them on multiple days because there are so many seniors at each school. We had a question from one board member which bears repeating, and that is one of our high schools is under construction. So South Oldham High School will be renting a tent
Yes.
to host this at their facility because their students indicated they'd rather be on the property or as close to the school as possible. The other two will be able to use their gyms or auditoriums, correct?
That is correct. I believe the plan is to be indoors with the exception of South High. There is no indoor space that we can use. However, Melissa Woosley, the principal there, has assured us that she can make, it's a very large, like wedding style tent. She said she is going to make that look spectacular. And I have no doubts that she can pull that off. So
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think, very visually appealing, and it will have that same feel that, we normally have in Freedom Hall or Broadbent.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good question that Ms. Hundley asked. Can we take questions at this time now, Ms. McDowell?
I think so. Mhm.
Board members, do you all have any additional questions for Ms. McDowell or either one of our board members who served? Mr. Kehoe and Mr. Woosley both served on this planning committee. So wondering if you all have any additional questions.
I have a question, please.
Ms. Hundley, great.
Have we verified that all of the caps and gowns are going to be in time for this?
Good question.
Leah or Christy, you might be able to answer for your school. I know as far as South has some custom gowns that I know were not going to be available. So they have switched to generic caps and gowns, which I'm told will be in time for the ceremonies later this month.
Great question, I think, Ms. Hundley.
I've got one question.
Mr. Dodson.
If the board members would like to attend this, would there be a place for them?
Yes. That should not be a problem for a board member if they want to attend. Well, of course, everyone will be socially distanced, but yes, that will be an option.
Okay, thank you.
We can discuss that, Mr. Dodson. I know you have a long history of being able to attend our graduations, as do several of us. It's really the whole reason that we do what we do in this district, to see our kids graduate from high school. And it's a huge honor. I really regret that this is Ms. Hundley's first ever experience on the board with senior graduation, and we're in this pandemic. But at any rate, I think probably we will not all five be able to attend all of these graduations, but perhaps we can decide if one or another want to be present for a particular high school's graduation, to stand somewhat off to the side. I don't think the superintendent is planning to attend.
The superintendent is planning on doing a bang up job on a great video. And that way I can ensure that everyone's getting the same wonderful congratulatory message. And once again, by me not being there, that allows somebody else to be there, primarily a family member, a loved one, somebody that is a lot more central to the student's existence than what I am.
Yes, I feel the same way. If it gives, it's most important that those teachers and counselors that have been so important to our students be able to be present. So
if we could, Madam Fletcher, Dr. McMahon and Ms. Pelkey, they were going to answer about their gowns at their schools. So if they could go back and just answer that, because I know some people are watching, they'd love to hear that information here as well.
All right, thank you, sir. So, Ms. McMahon.
Yes. From North Oldham High School, we do have caps and gowns in. Ms. Pitzenberger has worked hard to get our honor stoles across the district in on time, as well as honor cords that are associated with different clubs and activities that the students would have participated in. So, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And did we have another advisor there?
Yes, Ms. Pelkey.
Hi, Ms. Pelkey.
Yeah, Oldham County does have their caps and gowns in. We're going to distribute soon. And we also have our cords and everything ready to distribute as well. So we are ready for caps and gown.
So that begs the question, our system for picking those things up, will we bag those things and have a student pick them up at the school at a
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we
date and time?
Yes, we all schools have developed a system in which to pick up student material that they may have left at school, so give that back to the students, as well as drop off maybe technology or books, and also deliver the senior items. So that's one thing that in all those plans, once again, have been approved through Lisa Burgess, who's our health department liaison, the level director, Ms. Rohannon, and myself. So we're in very good shape with those plans.
Do we know when that's going to take place, Superintendent?
They all have mixed dates. We can probably compile that and send that to the board members.
Okay. And I understand from correspondence that you and I have had that some of the diplomas are actually in.
I actually have a little writer's cramp because I got OCHS's first.
Yes.
I did not time myself, so we can't have that competition this year.
No.
But they are ready for you, and I'm waiting on North and Souths and Buckner.
So our students will be able to actually receive their diplomas at the time that they graduate.
At least at OC. Now, they used a different group this year than the other two schools, so I'm just not exactly sure if they've come in or not. I've not gotten that update.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any other questions, board members, while we have everybody on this format right now? Wow, great job, Ms. McDowell and committee members.
Madam Fletcher, if we could, I think I would like Lori to also, in our super report, to wind up. One of the other important keys was having some type of senior celebration where it wasn't the graduation ceremony, but the actual seniors to get together.
Yes.
So if we could let her talk us through that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. McDowell.
Yeah, the second part of this, and of course this is dependent on, this is also something that we can't really put a date on because we don't know when or if this will be allowed, but students did indicate the desire to have some sort of celebration when it's allowed. Again, we don't know exactly when that will be, but just an opportunity for the entire class to get back together and celebrate their accomplishments. So the second part of this proposal is what we're calling the senior celebration. And what that will look like is it will take place at each school whenever allowable. So South's class will be at South, OC will be at OC, and North will be at North. And it will be basically just a big party with games, with refreshments, maybe some Chick-fil-A, maybe some Kona Ice, and just being able to get together for one last time and have fun.
Yes.
So that's the second part that again, we don't have a date on that because it's going to depend on when it's allowed, but hopefully before things get ramped up in the fall.
And Lori, could you also speak to one of the things that we heard loud and clear and that we're still working towards is that the potential for a possible graduation ceremony, once again, pending the availability, pending on the desire, pending on just the general status in the fall as well.
Right. And that's one thing, we heard from students as well as parents is the desire to at least have the hope for that traditional ceremony when allowable, whether that's later in the summer or in the fall. So that's something that we want to keep open as an option to have that, whether it be at Freedom Hall or Broadbent Arena or some other location at a time or a date to be determined, but at least to keep that option open if the desire is still there once we get through with this hybrid ceremony. Again, and if allowable at that point, sometime later on in the year to have that traditional type of graduation.
Yes. Any other questions, board members?
Ms. Fletcher, I have a question. It's Kevin.
Mr. Woosley?
Lori, I know that we've talked about this in the committee, but just for the benefit of our parents and the other board members, what's the district's plan and the school's plan in communicating this proposal to our families and seniors?
Good question.
Yes, so I have a letter written up, ready to go, that will go from the district to all seniors and parents, if approved today, that just kind of gives the basic outline of the hybrid plan and the senior celebration. And then, you know, the option to potentially have that traditional graduation later on. So that, if approved, will go out this afternoon. And then each school already has ready to go their own communication plan that gets more into the nuts and bolts, because each school is going to be, you know, different days, different times. So they have that ready to go to send out to parents to let them know this is when the graduation will take place. This is the time slot that we're looking at. So they'll get the nuts and bolts part of it from the school themselves.
Excellent.
Can they forward that to the board members, those dates?
Absolutely.
That was Mr. Dodson. Thank you, guys. Other questions, board members?
Ms. Fletcher, I'm sure you'll do this, but I just want to make sure Lori and Leah especially, and the rest of the committee know how much we appreciate your work in this. And there's been a lot of hours, and it's a lot of frustration, and you guys have done a great job on it. So just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. And I really want to give a shout out to our especially our senior sponsors. The amount of hours that they have put into this, you can't count. And they really, really want to make this special for the seniors. They thought of every little detail. So I think that the praise really needs to go to our senior sponsors for all the work that they've put in.
I appreciate all of those remarks. I know that it's been a shared platform. I know that you all have put in an enormous amount of work. Ms. McDowell, my board members, administrators, senior sponsors. I am thrilled that we had some actual input from our senior students, which after all, this is about them. And I know at one point I asked Mr. Woosley about how much time you all had put into this planning operation, and the hours were just enormous. And I cannot thank you enough from the Board of Education for developing what I think is probably the very best plan that we can offer our kids. So thank you. Thank you.
And if I could just add to that, Madam Chair, I mean, we talk a lot about Team Oldham, and I think this is just another illustration where multiple groups have come together to provide the greatest opportunity that we possibly can for our students at this point. I know that this has been a major source of angst for our families and for our seniors, and hopefully this plan will relieve that angst, and we can have some type of closure for these kids that have really had their senior year ripped from them. At no fault of their own, or no fault to the school district. And I just can't applaud the committee enough for doing a great job on this.
Completely agree. Thank you. If this concludes our superintendent report, then we have one action item. Superintendent, what's your recommendation then, sir?
For this action item, I would ask that the board approve the alternative to traditional graduation plan for the fiscal year 20 graduates.
Excellent. So may I have a motion to approve, please?
Kevin, I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Woosley, seconded by,
Pat Kehoe, I'll second it.
excellent, Mr. Kehoe seconded the motion. All those in favor? Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher makes 5. So that carries unanimously. And what a relief to have a plan in place, and we can move forward to celebrate graduation with these guys. You all did an awesome job. Thank you. Motion to adjourn, please. I'm assuming that's your recommendation, Superintendent.
I don't know. This has been pretty quick. I've still got about 15 more minutes of good quality time, but I will make that recommendation to adjourn.
Hang on here with whoever else wants to hang on. But in
That's
the
right.
meantime, can I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Larry, yes.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by
Pat Kehoe.
Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor? Mr. Woosley,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kehoe.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop it. Miss Hundley,
Yes.
thank you. And Fletcher makes 5. Unanimous. We're adjourned. Great job, Oldham County.